everybody, welcome. Thanks for joining us today. My name's Mike Gibb. I run AccountRecovery.net, and I want to welcome you to today's webinar. We're talking about how to thrive in remote. Managing a remote workforce has gone from a temporary adjustment to a long-term necessity across credit collections and contact centers. Operations leaders are balancing productivity, compliance, and culture while teams work from home or from anywhere. From managing call quality and data security to ensuring engagement and profitability and accountability, leading a dispersed team requires a new playbook for success. So today in this webinar, which is being sponsored by CollaborationRoom.ai, we've got a panel of experts here to break down the tools, policies, and leadership strategies that financial institutions and contact centers need and are using to effectively manage and motivate remote employees. As I mentioned, this webinar is being sponsored by Collaboration Room. Collaboration Room helps contact centers solve the problem of how to successfully manage and train agents in remote, hybrid environments. For the last 5 years, contact centers have been forced to cobble together tools like Teams and Zoom that weren't built for the remote environments and never will be. Collaboration Room provides a patented SaaS platform that mirrors the floor virtually, allowing leadership to engage with, manage, train, and support agents as if everyone was sitting next to each other. Additionally, AI compliance tools ensure that security and compliance policies are being followed no matter where the agent is working. Collaboration Room is the one tool built specially to make remote work work. You can learn more by visiting them online at CollaborationRoom.ai. I'll drop a link in the chat that you can use to visit their website, and we're going to hear from Jason Hiland from Collaboration Room a little later in our conversation. All right, rather than reading everyone's bios, I'm going to introduce our panel and prompt them with a question and ask each of them to share what's the best piece of advice you've ever received. First up is Maxime Cote-Tremblay from Foundever. Maxime, what's the best advice you've ever received?
Yeah, and thank you, Mike, for having me as part of the panel today. Definitely, I watched a few of your previous recording. Quite excited to be part of the conversation. But best piece of advice. So I think never assume the status quo as the optimal solution. But attached to that is don't assume bad intent. Ask question, figure out why they're stuck in that model. So often have I heard teams mention, well, we've always done it this way, so this is the right way to do it. But when you start asking questions themselves, they've already identified areas of opportunity that they want to correct. So let them open up, share with you the opportunities, and figure out a plan afterwards versus trying to impose a change without understanding. So that's Excellent. The best piece of advice I've received.
Love that. Thanks for sharing. Look forward to hearing more from you. Next up, Ray Dziubla. Ray, what's the best piece of advice you've ever received?
Stay humble and don't forget who brought you to the dance. My career has not been, launched into an executive role. I started out as a collector, and I still remember the person that trained me as a collector. And as you gather all that information, pay it forward. Don't forget to pay it forward.
Excellent. Love that. John Farinacci is the CEO of American Coradius International, or ACI. John, what's the best advice you've ever received?
Yeah, Mike, for me, this one's a little bit like, what's your favorite song, right? That tends to ebb and flow back and forth. But I think if I had to pick one of the pieces of great advice I've received over the years that sort of, has enterprise value over all of my career, it would be clear, be fair, and be consistent, right? So that, your staff knows where they stand, whether that's when I was a supervisor running collectors or in an executive role with other executives around me that report to me. If they know where they stand, they know what the mission is, then, we're all moving in the same direction.
Excellent advice. Thanks for sharing. Tim Haag's the president and CEO of State Collection Service. Tim, what's the best advice you've ever received?
This was not in the notes, so I'm going with this. Stay as far away as possible to Mike Gibb as you can. That's the best advice I've ever had. No, in all honesty, a long piece of advice that was given by a wise man. It was my father many years ago, and that's something that has made us successful over the years. And it's very simple, but it's very hard for leaders to do this. And it is hire people smarter than you. We used to always joke it was very easy for my father, Tom, and I to do so, but and we'd get a good laugh out of that. But it's very simple, but there's a lot of leaders out there that just can't do that.
Great advice. Excellent. Thank you. And I didn't realize I smelled, so I will go take care of that. So thanks for pointing that out too. Peter Sorrentino. Peter, what's the best piece of advice you've ever received?
Yeah, thanks, Mike. Yeah, my dad said to me years ago, if you could, whatever you do for work, and especially if you're going to start your own business, make sure you love what it is you do because you're going to be doing it a lot. 24 hours a day, you get to decide which 24 hours, but you're going to be doing a lot of it. So make sure you're passionate.
Excellent. Love that. Jason, you also get to contribute. What's the best piece of advice you've ever received?
I'm going to say this loud so that my wife in her office can hear it because I'm going to quote her. And she has a line that couldn't be more true. And that is, everything is figure outable, is her line. And it's really true. If you just step back and breathe and take a look at a problem, there is no problem you can't figure out.
Figure outable. Love that. Excellent.
Yeah. New word.
All right. Appreciate everybody sharing. All of you who are watching us live today, you're absolutely invited to engage, participate, share, use the chat or use the Q&A for questions, comments, however you want. If there's something specific you want to get out of this conversation, by all means, drop it in the chat or send it into the Q&A. If you would prefer to remain anonymous, there is an anonymous button that you can push in the Q&A, and anything you send to us, I promise, is sent anonymously. Okay. Talking about remote work, what does good management look like in a remote environment? Let's start by sort of going around the panel and having each of you sort of define what you think good management looks like. John, I'm going to ask you to kick us off.
Yeah, I think look, obviously it's shifted right from the in-office to the remote work and how supervisors engage. And I think what good management looks like is finding ways to engage remotely with staff, and whether that's management, whether that's supervisors and their agents, but it's being engaged with them. It's understanding what their needs are, which are slightly different remotely, which maybe we'll get into a little later in the conversation than they are when we're in the office. But it's being in this, again, we do use CollaborationRoom.ai. And so I mean this very literally, but also not so literal. And that's being present in your staff's everyday work life. So to me, good management is being engaged, being present in their work life, and understanding what their needs are and being able to address them.
I guess I'll add on to that because I completely agree with you. It's the engagement piece, and we've been doing remote work for a number of years. But then obviously when COVID hit, now we're like 98% remote. The biggest mistake we made in that first 2-week rush to get people out and working from home was our IT team was worried about, we had at the time about 100 FTE working remotely, but then to shift to have another 400 or 500 plus people, they were worried about, was the system going to handle it, especially with Teams and with Zoom and all the video. So they recommended to us not to use our cameras. Well, that's the whole point of being on Zoom and Teams, is to engage, to your point, John. And so I would say the first 6 months, we didn't have much use of cameras. And I remember I had a call from a young lady that was newer, and she had gotten terminated, and she wanted to talk to me about it. And it was a good reason for being termed. I mean, she couldn't show up to work every day, and she couldn't show up on time. But I did ask her a question. I said, so who's your supervisor? Told me, Sally. I said, what color hair does Sally have? And she goes, brown. I said, well, how do you know that? Well, her Zoom picture or her Teams picture has a picture of her. I said, so you've never actually spoken to her on a camera or seen her in real life? Nope. I said, this has got to change. So that was a big mistake, but we overcame that. And to your point, John, we also use Collaboration Room, and it is all about engagement and keeping that culture. And I didn't think we could do it. And it's proven that we're just as good in a remote world as we were in the office.
Yeah, it's so interesting because what you've both described, and I'm fully aligned, like John, Tim, like the engagement piece is the critical piece. But is it so different than our brick and mortar sites? It's the same. Like the difference is you need to put in the effort to do it virtually. If you just approach it as, well, someone is going to tap my shoulder when they need assistance, or I'm going to see visually indicators for my team, well, you're going to fail because you don't have that built into your cadence, built into your process. And I think that's where a lot of the challenge, especially when we deploy large scale team, if we don't have those foundations set right, like for the team to be able to execute, then they're not able to build that bridge from an engagement perspective. And I agree, like I think Jason and the Collaboration Room team has quite a platform to be able to facilitate that engagement and bridge that gap. I don't see a difference between the two. I just think the difference is virtually you have to force it. You've got to make sure that your process, your tools are built that you create the engagement versus waiting for it to happen, because it comes more naturally when you're in a physical environment.
Yeah, agreed. I think just add on to my earlier statement. One of the things that make a good manager is understanding the role, right? So what Maxime just mentioned, right? It's not that different, but it's different enough that even supervisors or managers are trained and developed differently.
Yep.
And so one of the things that we did, and we again, like a lot of companies, we went home during COVID and never came back, right? And so we were building things after that to be functional in a remote environment. But one of the things that we did was put our supervisors through a course that was created for managing remotely. And so that just gave them a slightly different perspective, right? Because it is, there's a vast difference between a Broadway play and watching something on TV, right? So that sort of live environment that's no longer there needs to be replicated as best it can be. But there's other nuances to that whole management, remote management style that they weren't aware of. Again, they were just managing like they always had, and it wasn't as effective, right, as an in-office environment. So, any training or development you can give specific to remote work environment for your management staff, I think is probably beneficial.
Yeah, absolutely. I agree. Like I think the training and the process surrounding that movement is what's critical. And you need to be able to measure that afterwards. Who is successful and who needs more help? If you don't know that, then you're going to have those gaps that are going to be apparent at some point.
But folks, I think a fundamental change has happened during this period of migration to remote work, where initially when we were in-house, we managed attendance. Okay, did Sally show up for work? Is Bob sitting at his desk? These are the things that we were sort of fundamentally managing. Are people showing up? And when we started to work in a remote environment, we were kind of really started managing that same way. Is, Susie actually there and working? And tools like Collaboration Room allowed us to see that right away. Okay, yes, they're there. Yeah, we were using some of those other tools in the meantime, but ultimately we were still trying to manage that same way. Are they there and are they working? And we started to migrate into more of, let's manage the activity and make sure not only are they there, but now we can see, are they actually working? And we got to see those activities. And so we went from managing attendance to managing activity. And I think that the logical progression of that state of management is now moving towards managing the performance, managing the outcomes, managing the result of the work. So it's not just enough for somebody to be there and be present. It's not just enough for somebody to be going through those motions and doing those actions. Now it's more about what is the end result of that, and is that what we ultimately want? So it's a logical progression to that, but I think it's also the fundamentally, that's how we're going to get the biggest rewards from this, right? And that maybe goes into some other topics that I'm sure we'll discuss here, like continuing education and all of those tools that we can now use to help increase that positive outcome or that result.
I'd add from ITX's perspective, also, it's a lot about managing the managers. Making sure that they're carrying whatever the initiative is of the company, the culture of the company. When we were introduced to Collaboration Room, I think everybody's gone through that where, oh, you're bringing in Big Brother. For us, it was, let's make sure that we are not Big Brother. We don't necessarily care if you have a bad hair day. Those kind of things, being on camera, those issues, if you can manage staff and be honest with them about expectations and have your managers carry that forward, you're going to get a heck of a lot better results. But you got to live up to the expectation for the staff. And for us, it's managing the managers to make sure that they're gonna carry forward the initiatives of the company and the culture.
I wouldn't change that, Stanley. Oh, go ahead, Tim.
No, I said, I mean, I agree. And I think, that first 6 months, even that first year of COVID, everybody's world was turned upside down. So all of a sudden they're expected to totally change their world from walking up and down cubes to checking on people to then doing it from a remote standpoint as they're juggling, trying to teach their kids and, everything else like that going on. So it was total chaos. And I think now that things have settled in, and after that first 6 months to a year, it just became normal life. And it's a lot easier today for that. But you're right. I mean, early on, it was just complete chaos.
I think from a corporate perspective, the idea was not to be treating remote work as a sidebar or an add-on or a necessity, like a business continuity plan, but leaning into it as a real fundamental part of the business go forward. And I think, those businesses that we see here and that we've seen that could actually thrive and really grow are the ones that have said, this is a part of how we do business now. Let's make sure it becomes a part of all elements of our business. Yes, manager training, employee training and coaching, and all of those elements that we're talking about now, but also the policies, the procedures, the fundamental technologies that we're using, and those things become a part of our business go forward, not just a little add-on or a sidebar.
I think that mindset of leading a team versus managing a team, and that's what I wanted to mention, but I think that ties into what you were saying earlier, Peter, about moving to an outcome-based type of management style, where what you're looking is for the outcome of people performing versus looking at like what needs to be the input for them to be present, be on time. If you look at the outcome, communicate the outcome clearly to like what's the expectation and how they can get there. That's when you really see that difference and you see the team evolving. But fully agree. Like I think having our leaders prepared, equipped, and building the process around that. Because if you just tell them you need to be engaged, you need to be present for your team, well, that's very vague. Like, what does that mean into action? And when something happens, like one of your agent no longer has internet access, and who do they contact? If that's not defined from the get-go, and it's not a clear path for the person to reach and get assistance, well, that person is going to get lost. Like they're not going to receive the support. And this is where you see attrition and people departing from the organization. So from the get-go, that structure needs to be established with clear process and guideline for people to follow.
Absolutely.
Okay. Excellent. I'm going to hit the pause button briefly on the conversation. We've got plenty more to dive into. We've got questions coming in from the audience. But first, I wanted to invite Jason Hiland from Collaboration Room, which is sponsoring today's webinar, to say a few words. Jason.
Hi, Mike. Thank you. And panelists, thank all of you for being here today. Look, they're saying a lot of great stuff about remote. But, as you've heard, a lot of these folks are using Collaboration Room, and some people out there don't know what Collaboration Room is. So I just thought I'd just real quick give you a sample of what they're talking about when they say Collaboration Room, as opposed to a Teams or a Zoom or something like that. Oops, wrong one. So right here is a quick video I'm going to run through, and I'm hitting a timer so I don't go too far over here, Mike. So what I'm going to show you is our supervisor room, which is where we do training, nesting, and production. And then I'll show you the meeting room. So if we go into a quick view of the supervisor room, what you'll see down here is this is a supervisor or trainer. Up here are the agents. Now, what makes us different is we're not only streaming the videos, but we're streaming multiple monitors of each agent at the same time. So it's just like that supervisor is in here.
If you're sharing something, I don't see it.
Yes. Maybe I should share instead of just going about it that way. All right. Give me 1 second. Thanks, Mike. I'll have to reset my timer. No, I got it. Okay.
There we go.
All right. Here we go. So right now we're in what would be a production, training, or nesting room. Down here is your supervisor and trainer. Up here are the agents. Now, what makes us different than Zoom and Teams is we're not only streaming the videos of the agents, but we're streaming up to 2 monitors. We're actually adding a 3rd monitor as well. So it's just like the supervisor or trainer is right back on the floor with these agents. Over here, they're just going to send out a quick chat through our embedded chat. platform. I'll show you how they make calls. The next thing you're going to see is a supervisor's ability to click and listen to a call without having to be integrated to the telephony platform. So he's listening to this call right now. He can double click on the monitors. And then if he's done double click on the monitors, maybe he's having a call, he can double click on the video. And over here is the participants tab. These things change color and the emojis change. Like Samir right here is in smiling because he's got a little smile on his face. So we're giving clues to the trainer and supervisors as to the emotion that the agents might be seeing. And this is their internet connectivity and CPU availability. So it'll show you how well they can be productive. Now, Samir's got a question and Ken's got a question. So they're going to raise their hand. And the supervisor is just going to pop up here and tell Samir, hey, place that consumer on hold. Once that consumer is on hold on telephony, now one of them can initiate a private call through Collaboration Room. This supervisor or trainer is talking to Samir. He can look through, scroll through all of these monitors by hitting the swap camera screen, like you can see right here, and he can coach him and support him so he can get off that call and back on the call with the consumer. For time purposes, I'm going to move past this. We're going to go to some security because it's important for a lot of you. This young lady has a cell phone, not allowed on most floors. But our AI knows what a cell phone looks like, and we've even launched clean desk availability. So even if that cell phone was sitting on the desk, depending on your camera type, we can let you know if we see a camera, pen, or paper on that desk. Now, that for those of you who know Samir, right up here, our CEO and founder, I'm going to show you where he got his good looks. That's his mom walking up behind him. And our AI is going to say, wait a minute, I see multiple faces. Even if she stood back behind that blurred video, the AI would still know, and we could let you, your supervisor or trainer know that that room is not compliant. If you don't like the security and stuff, you can just turn it right off. Now here we're just letting the supervisor or trainer know there's no one in the video. But we don't put people on camera and monitor them. That's creepy. We engage. So the agents and trainees, they see their supervisor in the production and training rooms, and they can make calls. They can chat. If you allow, they can call or chat other people in the room. If there was somebody else who walked in, another trainer or a supervisor or a weirdo like this guy, the agents would see them. It's full transparency. Now, what we can do is we can take these agents from this room and we can move them from a production style room into a meeting room where everybody sees each other. So that's all I wanted to show you today. I went a little over due to my sharing issue, but in short, that's what Collaboration Room is. It's about engagement, training, coaching, and support. And when you need it, security and compliance. All right, I'm going to turn it back over to you guys.
Excellent. Thanks, Jason. Thanks to Collaboration Room for sponsoring today's webinar. Everybody can check them out at CollaborationRoom.ai. Okay, we've got a couple of questions that have come in from the audience. I'll use this as an opportunity to remind everybody you can use the chat or the Q&A if you have any questions. We were talking about managers before, and there was a question that came in is, that's the biggest issue as a manager coming into an already remote environment. How do you get the employees on board with being on camera all the time?
And I think it's always a journey. Like the first thing I would always recommend is setting the stage. If you just try to deploy a platform and you don't explain what's the intent and what you're trying to achieve, people are going to make their own assumption. And that comment about Big Brothers from earlier, if you just say, well, I want everyone to be on cam all the time, that's going to be the sentiment. If you explain the value, it's about creating engagement. Like, I'm going to be on webcam as well. We're going to be all in for as a group. The intent for us to be on webcam is for us to be able to connect more easily, share best practice. Like, all about why are you bringing that tool and that platform into play. That's the conversation where it should start versus talking about just having the technology as the result, the reason you want to bring it.
Yeah, we focus on support. It's all about support. It's not about oversight. And honestly, in the collaboration room environment, we can support our staff better remotely than we can support them in a brick and mortar environment. And again, you have to live up to that. Whatever your culture is, whatever that message is, you've got to live up to it. So part of it is you got to put them in that environment, and then you've got to live up to your expectation. And once they understand that, oh yeah, this is exactly what they told me. I have access to a supervisor every minute of the day if I need to have access to a supervisor. I'm getting rounded. You know, the CEO's popping in once every couple of weeks just to say hello. Those are the kind of things that develop a really, really good culture. But there's no easy button for this. You got to go through it and live up to the expectation. And I think, like what Maxime said, it's an evolution. It's not, add water and poof, you're there. It's an evolution. It takes a little bit of time, and you've got to get buy-in from your people, and then you leverage that buy-in with other people. So if you've got new people coming into the organization, maybe you want to sit with somebody that embraces it, that knows it, that can talk about it more so than I can with an employee that's coming new into the organization. It's a level of trust for me.
Yeah, for us, our deployment, which was a few years ago now, there was hesitancy in the beginning from the staff, right, around mainly around the cameras that the previously mentioned Big Brother sort of thought. But again, once you start explaining, one, the reason for the technology, right, that this is not a Big Brother, this is, the reason for it is actually in the name, collaboration, right? This is what this is about. It's something we've been missing since we left the physical office space. But also, the one thing that we struggled with, and I think probably most organizations did in the very beginning, was how do we continue on with our infosec requirements to our clients, and so this helps address some of those things. Jason just showed the video with the cell phone, or the secured workspace where somebody else is entering it. And those were very those were the very questions we were sort of getting from our clients. And so when you start speaking to the staff around, well, we have these obligations that we need to meet for our clients. This is a tool that not only helps you interact with your teammates and your supervisors, but also helps us address some of those concerns. They start to get it, and then really honestly, after about a week of usage, most of the hesitancy went away from the staff. And I think they rather enjoy being able to see their teammates, in their room with them and engage with them and interact with them. They probably did not recognize what they were missing from not having the people around them and working in a home office. And so after, as I said, maybe about a week or so, it was better than business as usual had been. So. For me, it's just educating the staff really on the reasons for not just this tool, for any sort of tool you're going to be deploying for a remote work environment. Just give them the reasons behind it, and they tend to accept it better.
A couple of us have mentioned culture, right? And that's really important. If your organization already has a culture of communication, then this transition is going to be a lot easier because of that communication and that availability of everybody. If you don't have that culture already, then that's going to be more and more challenging. But creating these structured touch points are really important to develop that culture of communication, like having a town hall or having a weekly Friday call or having your Monday morning startup or whatever that looks like. If you have those regular touch points, you have that ability for people to start communicating, and that communication can go two ways, right? But then we get into not just a culture of communication, but to John's point, a culture of compliance. Then people will start to understand, and everybody will feel that culture of compliance. Nobody will pick up a cell phone or have a cell phone near them. Nobody will allow somebody to walk up behind them and see what's on their system, because we'll start to be able to see that, coach them, coaching. Then everybody feels that same way about compliance. So eventually the idea is that everybody feels that and is sort of living that same culture of communication, culture of compliance. And the more that we can display that these tools help us coach and instill that type of behavior in our people, the more the companies that use our services will recognize, hey, they've got these controls, and not only do they have those technical and physical controls, but they have instilled that culture of compliance in each individual person so that is a non-issue in the future. Right? But this helps us get to that point.
All right. So, Mike, we're at like the halfway mark here. So I got a funny story. We had to, get a little fun with talking about remote working and collaboration room, but Jason doesn't even know this story because it just happened about a week ago.
Can't wait.
So the only downside of collaboration room, had a new hire class. It's a Monday morning, first day. get to lunch hour. The trainer says, all right, guys, we're going to take a half-hour lunch break. Go ahead and turn off your cameras and turn off your speaker, but stay logged in so you don't have to redo that first day of everything else like that. Well, the trainer stepped away, and all of a sudden her team starts ringing and ringing, and she goes back to it, and like the whole team is calling her separately. And she looks over at Collaboration Room. Well, there was a young lady that forgot to turn her camera off. And that young lady happened to have her boyfriend, husband, significant other. And they were working in the bedroom. And you can just pick your imagination where it goes, and that's exactly where it went. So HR had a call and said, by the way, Sally, you didn't turn your camera off over lunch. She turned bright red and said, I'm so sorry. I'm so ashamed. I'm so embarrassed. You don't have to fire me. I quit. So just keep that in mind. You might see some things you don't want to see. Back to you,
fair.
Mike.
Good point.
That's fair.
Love that. All right.
And
John
if
mentioned
there's any-
tools. There was another question that came in asking, are there any specific tools for managing your remote staff that you couldn't live without?
Yeah, well, I mean, I'll start it off. CollaborationRoom.ai is the number one, right? That's the main tool we use to engage. Prior to using them, we were trying to use Zoom and Teams, and it just wasn't working as well. So that's the number one for me is that from a technology perspective. From an infrastructure perspective, we did, not because of Collaboration Room, just because everyone was remote. We did learn very quickly that we needed bigger pipes to handle all of the internet traffic back and forth, which we didn't know when we sent everybody home. Remember, we were built the opposite of all of this. We were built so that nothing gets out of our physical office to do anything. No one can do anything anywhere else. Proper VPN piping but from an engagement perspective, Collaboration Room for sure.
Yeah. I think standard like IT infrastructure best practice, like having redundancy in the environment that's supporting your folks, both from a system network pipeline, like that, you need to make sure that you've got more than you need to be successful.
Yeah.
From a day-to-day management, like having a platform where you can see your employees, what's going on real time, be able to connect with them, do breakaway rooms where you can actually connect with them and have conversation is definitely a critical tool. And again, like that availability to see the floor is a huge advantage in a call center environment.
For us, it's not a big leap. You still have access to all the same tools that you had when you're in a brick and mortar environment. So
yeah.
If that's Artiva or a different system, if you're using a dialer, all those things are still there. For us, some additional technology would be like, a voice analytics environment where it's triggering information to you as it's happening so that you can pay attention to situations as they're taking place in real time, in addition to what Collaboration Room already provides. But it's not a far departure from having people work in your office. The tools that you're using today still apply.
Yeah, Ray, that's exactly how I look at it, right? What are the tools that we deployed in office or remote versus what's new that we're just deploying because of remote, right? So, I think the speech analytics one, which the sort of live agent we deployed recently within the last sort of handful of months, and that's been another really good one for us as well. But again, we might use that internally, but felt being remote, it was even more important. So. That's kind of how I break these technologies down, right? A phone, telephony platform you're going to use no matter where you're at, right? So, but what are we using to better engage, better manage, get better performance with our staff remotely is kind of how I look at this.
I also think if you do it right, you automatically improve the quality of your staff. The Collaboration Room environment, we're 100% virtual. So all of our employees work remotely. You now have the ability, you're not confined to a geographical location where you're hiring people within a 30-mile radius of your offices. You now open that up to a much larger area, which gives you the ability to go out and recruit better qualified employees. And so it's a momentum thing. You improve your training, you improve your management, you improve the communication, and then you're out hiring better employees because you have a wider geographical net to choose from. It just all comes together and works really nicely in our experience anyway.
Yeah.
Without a doubt, Ray. I mean, I think that's like the best thing that happened with remote work and with COVID.
Yeah.
I mean, I always look at the upside, not the downside of things.
Yeah.
And that was huge. So, I mean, I agree with everything that you guys said. I think Collaboration Room, Teams is huge. Nobody uses email anymore. Everything's communicated through Teams. And and that's how you also build that culture, having their own Teams rooms and be able to chat, with one another, this and that, send their all their pictures and their gifts and this and that. But just no different than old school in-house collections is having good reporting, be able to report back. Are they actually producing today, hour to hour, and looking at all those normal call center stats. When we first did remote prior to COVID, like I mentioned, we had about 100 FTE when COVID hit. And when we started that process, our rule was you had to be I think it was either 5 or 10% more productive at home. And so we were letting people leave the office to go home. And if they did not produce that, they were asked to come back into the office for 30 days. And that was a huge motivator. I mean, so they hit their numbers. It wasn't too often that we had to pull people back in. And once we did, typically we didn't see them come back again because they realized I really need to focus and do this. Now, then COVID hit and everybody moved and obviously productivity dropped. But we're back to seeing those numbers a heck of a lot better than they were when we were all in office. With the use of, changing different policies and bringing in other technology and things like that. But we're a heck of a lot more productive today.
Yeah, there's been a compounding effect with a lot more data analytics from where we used to be a few years ago. And I'm thinking more like this is pre-COVID time, but I still remember when we had tape deck for call recording, where you actually had to record and then listen afterwards the call. So now we've got all that data at our fingertip. So having the ability to utilize the data and drive conversation with our employees, lift performance, like if you use it wisely and use it to coach on skill and develop your people, like you're going to make them super agent in essence. If you use them just to hit them on the head with, well, you're not hitting your number, that's where no matter the environment, like being physical or virtual, like you're not going to see the result because you're not providing the help. So it's all about that collaboration and engagement. How do we create that? And that needs to happen in both virtual and brick and mortar.
For very specifically for tools that we're relying on to operate remote, I've been very fortunate. I got to turn a brick and mortar operation, a legacy brick and mortar operation, into a remote work environment. And to do that, Collaboration Room was actually the single most powerful tool that allowed us to take our culture and migrate that into a remote workforce. And I was also fortunate enough to be able to build Freestyle Telecom from the ground up, which is a gig platform for the contact center industry. So that is a fully mobile platform that's done through your mobile device. You download an app in the App Store, Freestyle Live Agent. And the idea behind that is, to your point earlier about recruiting anywhere, we were able to recruit 7,000 agents in over 24 countries. And being able to tap into the best of the best and make sure that we're only selecting the very best of those applicants to work on our platform and to work within our environment. So there's no way we could do that with the recruitment tools that we had locally and domestically, but we're able to find all of these people who are bilingual, trilingual, multilingual agents in multiple countries to be able to converge and come together and join our team. So, it's one thing about the team that you've got and being able to manage them and work with them. And when we started with Collaboration Room, it was just our Canadian agents and our Philippine agents, and that's really the only two real markets we had people in that we could kind of cultivate and work with. And now with Freestyle, we're able to take that recruitment effort globally, and in every part of the world there's really good solid agents working within their environment that can bring a lot to your team. So certainly using these new tools to engage globally is a whole new flavor for us and gives us a whole new dynamic to our business and much more coverage and opportunity.
There was another question here that got asked earlier. Anything you can share on weather issues or the internet going down or any policies or information that need to be shared?
So there's definitely a piece about business continuity, understanding what are the risks for all of our employees, like where they're located. We've got I'm going to call it the battle control, where you see like all the different dots within a map, and you can overlay the weather projection and see where the risks are going to take place from a adverse weather. And then you can plan on, okay, like I know I've got other peoples in different region that I can leverage to support. Maybe it's not their day in today, but I can change their shift to be able to do so. So that's something you have to figure out as part of your process. How do you continue business understanding that we don't control the weather? Like no matter how we want to try to make a difference there, it's going to do what it wants to do.
Jason does.
Jason does control the weather. That's fair.
I always say there's two things in the world that are undefeated, and that's Father Time and Mother Nature. You can hold them off, but you'll never beat them. But that's one of the beautiful things about remote, that when people come to me, the recruitment and retention is huge. And, the real estate costs, those are pretty obvious. But going back to that question about business continuity, I mean, you're never going to know where Mother Nature is going to hit. And if you've got all your agents in one contact center and Mother Nature picks that area to hit, well, you're down. But if you're like a lot of these gentlemen who have spread their risk around multiple geographic areas, well, they very rarely will ever find themselves down. So that is just, it's a kind of a forgotten one about remote as far as a benefit, but it's a very important one for the people that have gone there.
But you're also acutely aware of every single natural disaster that happens everywhere in the world. So and we have to, from a management perspective, and we really talk about that management of remote, you have to be aware of the typhoon season in the Philippines. You have to be aware of hurricanes in the south. You have to be aware of forest fires in Greece. Like, you have to be aware of all of these things and address them and communicate with your team that just happens to be there, right? So everything, you're absolutely right. Business continuity, huge benefit, but also you're aware of everything that happens and you've got to address it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Doing the planning around how to use this data and do something about it. So like knowing where things are going to happen in the season is critical. Sorry, John.
No, that's okay. I was just going to flip things around a little bit. Being from Buffalo, New York, we get 4 feet of snow in a day and a half. Our agents, make it to their home office and log in versus I can't get in, because of the weather into the physical office. So for us, we've experienced far less, sort of the weather-related issues. And to Jason's point, we're in 3 different geographical areas. So we're in Western New York here, and then Indiana, and then Texas. And each of them have had, issues in the past. Texas is, windstorms or something that can take out some internet for a period of time. But again, we're just able to shift as needed, shift work to one of the other delivery centers. So, all good points by everybody. But for Buffalo, it's actually been a benefit to be remote because everybody can make it to their home office with 4 feet of snow on the ground.
Good.
Yeah, and I would say like even the best BCP for a physical location, there's going to be a typhoon, like your site is going to be down for a day or two. You're going to have a fiber cut. Like even if you've got dual lines coming in the building, if both fiber lines are cut, well, everyone is going to be down. So I much rather have diversity in the location of our employees to be able to continue the work.
And for whoever asked that question, expect it to happen. People's internet's going to go down. There's not a day that goes by that we don't have that issue come up. And you got to think about like, okay, what supports that then? We changed our benefits package to be a little bit more broader. So instead of saying you have sick day PTOs, we now have unscheduled PTO. So if somebody's internet goes down, because their concern is how am I going to get paid? That's your employee's concern. Mm-hmm. And we try to distinguish issues, things that are out of our control and things that are in our control. We don't have control over their internet. But we address it in surrounding policy so that the employees don't feel like, oh my gosh, I'm doomed here. And there's a level of trust that we have to have that they're being honest about those situations too. And you can call out the ones that are abusing it, obviously, from the ones that aren't. But it's going to happen.
Not on this call, but I've run into these people. They're not a partner or anything like that, but I get a lot of questions about the internet, and some of you guys might use these folks or someone similar. But there's a company called Ping Plotter out there. They can actually tell you when somebody's having, well, first of all, they can test any new agent's internet connectivity prior to you hiring them. So if you're looking to hire somebody remote, they can test that, make sure everything's good there. They can tell you if they're on Wi-Fi or on LAN. And then if they're saying their internet connectivity is bad, they can actually tell you across the board, is that on the company side, maybe with the VPN or VDI? Is that the internet provider, or is it coming directly from their side? So there's things that you can use. Again, tools that have been developed since remote work became a thing that allow you to understand a little bit better prior to hiring somebody while they're working, and then understand where the problems are occurring. And then maybe if you see a certain internet ISP that has a trouble in a certain state or a certain region, you just don't hire from that region.
If you've got this sell, you can also discuss with some of these telco companies. Sometimes they don't like VPN activity, but if you've got an high proportion of employees in a specific geo, you can have conversation with them to understand that your traffic is considered legit and they don't block it from an ISP perspective. So that takes a bit more work to figure out and get the right contact in place, but we do see that with some ISP providers.
Another question here from the audience. What changes in turnover rates have you observed or do you anticipate after going remote?
Yeah, well, so really specific numbers for me, going back to 2022, we were, from an agent perspective, we had an attrition rate of around 60%. And in 2025, we had that down to about 19%. Now, there's various reasons for that. Part of it is the hiring process itself, right? Which in 2022 was still new. Even that was different in office versus remote. So we got our hands around that, and then how we trained our individuals. We got our hands around that, and then how we engaged with them once they hit the floor, and we've got our hands around that, and all of that. So we're just. Not everybody that's suited for a physical office is necessarily suited for a remote, right? So, sometimes people can take advantage of a remote environment where, they're going to be, doing laundry or doing other things when they should be working, and you didn't have the tools in place to necessarily monitor that. You needed to get that under control. So we started with, hey, let's hire the best employee we can, which is one of the reasons why we're in 3 different geographical areas now. And then let's train them better, and then let's engage with them better along the way. So for us, remote's been it's been exceptional from an attrition perspective.
Our experience has been the same. What we saw early on was, our expectation was we'd be able to go out and hire people at the same rate, maybe even a little lower, because they won't have the expense of driving into work and blah, blah, blah. And our attrition in that environment, we were hiring people that didn't have work at home experience, and our turnover didn't change much. We moved that model to hiring people that have demonstrated work from home experience, and we saw our turnover go down. We also saw our pay going up because the workforce population was like, wait a minute, no, you don't understand. I have that experience. And it's a premium. So you need to pay me more because I have that experience that I can bring, to your company. So we've seen our costs go up a little bit, but certainly our turnover go down as a result.
We've seen our costs go up a little bit too, but a lot of that has got to do with the fact that production and performance is also up.
Yeah.
The production that we're getting out of people, whether it's dials per day or the right party connects or the conversion rates in the collection center, those numbers are through the roof. Our revenue per head is probably close to doubled over the last 3 years. That's our average standard now. Our average employee that's on the phone dialing for dollars is generating twice as much revenue as they used to. That's our new benchmark. So yeah, pay goes up because your pay for performance goes up. So any contingency commissions or bonuses you're paying as a result of performance are going up. So we're seeing that too. But then that also breeds stickier staff. So they're going to stick around because they're getting paid more, right? So you've got that as well. So yeah, I agree. And our rates, by the way, looked very, very similar to John's, almost identical to what he saw pre and post, right?
Yeah, and I think the platform that is being utilized is a key aspect there. So we're a platform agnostic organization, so sometimes we use our client's environment and not our own, and we see a difference there. If we don't have the right platform that drives the engagement, connect the employee together, you're not seeing that improvement in the attrition numbers. If we're able to deploy our full solution and some of our partner solution like Collaboration Room AI, that's typically when we see better retention from our employees. And as the other mentioned, like 10-20%, like that's typically the improvement that we see just deploying a virtual account versus a physical one.
And if I can add also, collaboration rooms often ties itself to call center work and collection activity. We have 40% of our staff are billers, auditors, claims management specialists. It is just as good in that environment as it is in a call center environment. So anybody that's listening and wanting to understand it, the technology supports remote workforce, period, not just call center remote workforce.
Yeah, the other thing I'd add is we're not seeing it as much now, but I know for a fact early on, people were applying for remote jobs. We know, being in this industry, agents always think they can outsmart the system. And so I think a lot of people thought, well, heck, I can get a job here. It's remote. They'll have no idea what I'm doing each and every day. Well, with Collaboration Room and all of our historical stats and our expectations, we can track that. They find that out really easily. But what we saw is after the first 2 or 3 weeks, that's all, sitting in the classroom. Training's fun. You have a fun trainer, you play some games, this and that, and I get paid. And then as I'm getting trained, I'm applying for a ton more remote jobs. I don't think we're seeing that as much anymore. And we're not seeing as much anymore the people that thought they could get 2 or 3 remote jobs at the same time and try to balance working 3 full-time jobs and get 3 full-time paychecks. That just doesn't work anymore.
There was a question that came in here. It's sort of a two-parter. I'll ask maybe the easier one first. What do you do when you have 2 employees working out of the same location? Remote location. Out of the same house.
Yeah, for us, I mean, you have to have your own dedicated workspace. You have to take a picture of that. It's got to be secured, like an office or a bedroom or a basement office, something like that. It can't be out in a general area unless you live by yourself. Then you could be set up in your living room, but otherwise, no. And I'd say we have a pet policy, but I saw Jason's pet on his, and my dog's on my feet scratching right now, so we don't have that. I think we do, but I just don't obey it.
Well, our AI doesn't look for animals. I will say that. It only looks for people. And because if it looked for animals, mine would be, Samir would be getting alerts left and right.
Yeah, we're the same as Tim, right? We require separate secure work environments for them, and but also, right, making sure that well, we have a policy when we go through the interview process. One of the questions is around internet speeds, right? So if it's going to be 2 people working out of the same place, it needs to be able to handle that. If there's a child at home during the summer, gaming or something, so it just sort of magnifies the need to make sure that the speeds are going to be able to handle, and generally they are, but mainly it's that they both have a secure work environment. Typically, we do have a couple instances, and they're on separate, they work separate clients, right? So they definitely can't be in the same area at all, right? Because the client A's information needs to be separate from client B. So again, just another one of those things that needed to be managed along the way. And, it's a relatively easy one. I think, basement office, bedroom office, and there you go. You have it.
Yeah, so exactly the same as Tim and John from my side. I'm curious though on the panel list, like we saw issues initially with internet being one of the problem, like people not having enough bandwidth, needing to upgrade. For a while, it became a lot better. Like people got broadband internet, and I mean, there's broadband pretty much everywhere now.
Yeah.
What we're starting to see is a shift back to, especially with satellite internet, 5G type of internet. And Jason, agree, like we can catch that from IRE, but what we're seeing is the telco companies are moving a lot of their subscriber base to these technology. Are you seeing an increase in identifying existing employees that have just switched technology? Like that's an issue we're faced with currently.
Yeah. Maxime, we definitely had I would say maybe about a year ago, we had more than a handful of employees switch to one of the phone carriers' internet, supposed home internet. They were experiencing latency and all these other things, and that's what it wound up being. And actually, again, during our interview process, we let them know you can't have this type of home internet. Does not support all of the things that we need to happen from home, right? Our telephony platforms, cloud, collaboration room, everything else that they need to access. It just doesn't support it, at least at this time. Maybe things have changed, but we've all but banned it basically from being a service that they can use.
I believe we still do it. I know we did it early on, and I'm just not that close to it. But before we'd provide an offer to you, you had to submit a copy of your internet bill. That was for two reasons. A, to find out how much bandwidth are you paying for, and then we would have them do a speed test to see how much else is pulling. But more importantly, to make sure it's their internet and not pulling off the neighbor in the apartment building, like we used to do in college with cable TV, had wires running up and down the windows. But that was the main reason behind that, and it worked out well.
Is there anybody paying their employees' internet bill?
Yeah. We started to, because that was our policy prior to COVID, and then all of a sudden we have a ton of people, and I found out how much we were spending. I said, wait, they don't have to pay for gas, they don't have to pay for lunch, they don't have to pay for Starbucks anymore, they don't have to go out and technically don't have to buy clothes. In a way, we expect to wear clothes, and I would expect you're going to wear clothes on camera, but we got rid of that real quick.
We always had a communication allowance for management because they were all expected to have a cell phone that they were using for work, right? So our managers, we just converted that communication allowance to their internet allowance to allow them to do that.
Makes sense.
Not for everybody, just for select people.
Yeah, we're not doing that at all. And so far, it hasn't been a problem. I think it's a fair trade-off for the employee to be in a remote environment versus the expense of back and forth to work, wear and tear on cars, that sort of thing.
All right, so we started the webinar asking you for the best piece of advice you've ever received. I'm going to go around the panel one last time and ask you to share the best piece of advice you picked up from today's conversation, or if we know the best piece of advice you want people to remember from this conversation. So what's that one big takeaway you want everybody to walk away from this webinar with? Ray, I'm going to ask you to go first.
It's not terribly complicated. It's pretty straightforward. It gives you an opportunity to manage people, in my opinion, better than you can manage them in an office. Don't be afraid of it. It's something that everybody's going to eventually go to. If your competition's doing it, they've got a leg up on you because they're going to take your employees.
Excellent. Thank you. Tim?
Yeah, I would say for those that aren't doing it, you got to go out there and do it. I also jotted down that freestyle that you mentioned, Peter. I'm curious about that. I'll do some looking into that. But overall, good webinar. We had a lot more content, but I love that the audience chimed in with all their questions. So it's very, very interactive. So congrats to the audience today.
Thank you, Tim. Peter?
It's probably Jason's thing. I don't know what you said at the very beginning. Was yours solutionable, or there's a solution?
Figure outable.
Figure outable.
Figure
outable. Everything is
great.
figure outable. Do you
Because
hear that, baby?
everybody's got a thing, right? So somewhere you can figure out every issue, you can get past it, take it one bite at a time, and figure it out and figure outable.
All right, excellent. Thank you, John.
Yeah, look, for me, for the audience, it is, definitely don't be afraid of it. There's, a lot of things have been figured out over 4 years ago, right? When all of this happened, or 5 years ago. So, reach out to Jason, find out more about his particular product, but also the other things that you heard here. One of the things that I'm going to look at is Ping Plotter. That's new to me, so I'll be looking that up and see how we can enhance our work at home environment even more than we already are.
Excellent. Thank you, Max.
Yeah, so Peter stole mine. So I was going to use the figurable. Like, that's a great word. So I want to use that moving forward as a word that I'm going to use. But otherwise, like I think Tim mentioned at the start, hire people smarter than you. I think this goes to how we train our people, how we communicate. If they have as much information or more than we do, then everything from there is a lot easier, both to get them to accept new technology, but also to perform better.
Excellent. Jason?
I learned that I'm going to call up the people over at State and explain a few of our camera settings to them. Because there are different settings. But no, I learned so much from you guys, and I just really, truly enjoy. I live this world every day, but I probably wrote down about 4 or 5 things here that I hadn't even thought about, and I just appreciate you guys so much.
Excellent.
Likewise.
Well, on behalf of everybody watching and listening, Max, John, Ray, Peter, Tim, thank you so much to each of you for being here, for sharing, for taking time out of your schedules, and really helping everybody else out better understand what they should be doing with remote workers, how to make sure that they're doing well and thriving. So on behalf of everybody, thank you to each of you for being here. Jason, I want to thank you and Samir and everybody else at Collaboration Room for sponsoring today's webinar. Everybody, please check them out at CollaborationRoom.ai. To everyone who watched and listened, thank you so much for making us part of your day, whether you're watching this live or watching a recording of this. It's appreciated. If you are watching us live, we're back tomorrow with a webinar at 1 o'clock where we're talking about skip tracing and asset location strategies for commercial collections. If you haven't signed up for that yet, there is a link in the chat, or you can find a link on the events calendar at accountrecovery.net. We'd love to see you back for that tomorrow at 1 o'clock Eastern. Until then, enjoy the rest of your day, everybody. Thank you so much for being here, and we look forward to seeing everybody soon.
Bye, everybody.
Thanks, everyone.
Thanks all.